Today I'm going to kind of welcome you guys into the world of one of my insecurities. I know that I'm a nice, young, handsome stud nowadays, but I didn't always kind of grow up that way because I had two really fat moms growing up, just a mom and a stepmom, and I was always just a twig of a boy, barely tipping the scales at 100 pounds till I was about 18. That's when I finally hit about 130 pounds. And that's really because in the beginning of my life, all of my family would just use food as coping mechanisms. And my family was white, so we didn't like the taste of our cooking, and so fast food was our go-to. My fondest memories of my grandmother are just her and I making Taco Bell runs, just kind of every day, because she wouldn't cook. But it was really sweet when she did cook. She would do her version of a real lovely American meal, which she called saltine delights, where you would take saltines and Kraft cheese with a thin slice of ham, and then you would broil it in the oven at about 350 for like 3 minutes, and that was the entire nice browned saltine crackers and some meat and cheese. So as you can tell, I grew up with a little bit of a strange kind of relationship with food because I noticed that nobody in my family really used drinking or smoking. I just recently found out my mom uses gambling, but she hid that one pretty well when I was growing up. And so everybody in my family just used food as their constant vice. And it definitely trickled down, as all things do, because there's nature and nurture. And they nurtured me into loving a good sweet treat in the middle of the night. And it's constantly caused me to have just random kind of bouts of body dysmorphia. So it led me to getting into the gym. And that's where I kind of put on muscle. But within that, my mom, it was just always humongous growing up, so much so that like people would make real references, like the imaginary, like "Yo, mama's so fat." That was the only one they did. That there was no point in even going, "Yo, mama's so stupid." It was just she's huge. So it was nice for her to look like Violet from Willy Wonka growing up at all times. I've never seen two women scarf down a dozen donuts the way that these women had the ability to do so. But I just had such a strange obsession with food that I would always try to count calories as a kid, and I would always try to figure out, luckily, why my metabolism was high and I didn't have the same like health problems that my parents did growing up. Because both of them, for one reason or another, were disabled because of some sort of physical ailment. My mom like cliff jumped when she was like 16 and fractured her ankle, and I was like, damn, usually that heals, and it doesn't when you use it as an excuse to gain 200 pounds. So, but I do have some real fond memories of her walking upstairs. It was always a good time growing up. But because my mom was so fat growing up, it really just made it so readily available in my mind because people would always point it out. It would always be a big thing. No pun intended there. And so I remember that she asked me for my high school graduation if I could have anything in the world, what would I want from her? So I was just completely honest. And I was like, listen, the way you're going right now, you're going to have some health complications sooner rather than later. So I want you to get to a healthy weight so that you have the ability to like be around for your grandchildren. Because you were, dumb enough to have me at 19, but I'm not going to have kids for a little while. So I want you to be around and not have a heart attack when they're turning 6 and you're getting too excited over their presents. And so luckily for me, she actually took this to heart. And luckily for her heart as well, I guess. But she would start to make intentional efforts. And so I said it to both my mom and stepmom and found a way to get them involved in the gym and to get them kind of conscious of the things that they were putting into their body. Because apparently, when you're not putting a lot of meat in your body, you're supplementing with sweets. And so both of them would go on workouts with me, which actually is one of my favorite memories growing up, because having like a black stepmom who's over 300 pounds and I'm just a little kid, when the only thing that we have the ability to do together to bond in an exercise fashion is to go to the water aerobics class with nothing but 65-year-old white women on a Tuesday morning at 10 a.m., you're going, like, my confidence had been through the roof at that point in time. I don't know if you guys have been hit on by 65-year-old white women in pools, but these women, they know what's up, and they really know how to treat a young man nice. They got the Saltine Delights on demand. So when my mom did eventually decide that she was really going to take her health into her own hands, I got to a point in my life in which I actually got to see her run for the very first time ever when I was, I want to say 19 or 20 years old. I mean, like, truly before that, I'd never even seen her gallop or jog. Just like the closest thing that she came, she tried to skip once and shook the house. So we had to stop it pretty immediately. And some people need assistance in many regards, and so people take alternate routes. And my mom decided that the easiest thing to do would be to get a gastric sleeve, where they literally just shrink the size of your stomach. And I was like, all right, bet. When they do that, one thing that they don't tell you is if you continue to go with your old habits, you have the ability to expand your stomach back up. And so it does take away kind of your ability to have the sensation of hunger in the same regard. And for some reason, you gas up the place. I'm telling you, it was like we were eating pinto beans for every meal. But she gets the sleeve, and then we start to see steady progress in which we'll go to the gym, and she's starting to lose a couple pounds every week. Not every week, Jesus Christ, she's not that's pretty intense. We weren't like sauna suiting it in Arizona or anything, but we were having just such a wonderful time in which we would go to the gym and we could celebrate small victories, in which we would cook a home like meal together, and we'd be able to share that. In which it wasn't just us bringing home fast food bags and pretending like we were going to have dinner together that we made. That's one thing growing up with like a super fat family is one of my favorite expressions that we always had is that we would get pre-made food and then they would go, hey, listen, if you like it, then I made it. And if you don't, fuck that. We got this shit from Safeway. And so it was just beautiful to start to share these new experiences with my mom, and we ran 5Ks together. I ran, She walked for a little bit, but she finished, and that's what matters because, you got to, finish the race. She always told me to clean my plate, so I made sure she crossed the finish line. I feel like it was a good trade-off. And in this sort of strange time in which I just like fat shamed the fuck out of my mom because I truly, when you do it out of good intention, I don't feel like it's shaming, right? Like it's just one of the beautiful parts of life that we have the ability to change because unlike the media tells you, most people do not have a health condition to to put you in that state. And so with her starting to get to this new level where she's dropping a lot of weight and she's starting to really come into her own and start to build this confidence. And so her and I are growing in physical not competence, but confidence at the exact same time in our lives, which is kind of a beautiful moment when you guys have the ability to just connect in that way where you guys feel the best that you've ever felt in both of your lives. And sadly, at that point in time, my mom and stepmom did decide to separate. My stepmom didn't lose the weight, and so maybe that was the reason. I don't know. But my mom just started to get to this point in which she was really feeling herself which was really unfortunate when I'm like a 19-year-old kid and she's going, hey, I'm about to have my first hot girl summer, so you better be ready. Because at this point in time, I decided it would still be a good idea to live with my mom. And I don't know if any of you guys have had this situation where like a roommate asks you to leave for the night, but it's even worse when it's your mom. And she's like, listen, buddy, come on. Mama's trying some new things out, so you're going to have to dip for a minute. So it got into this just very strange place where both her and I are looking physically attractive to the point where other men, when her and I would go out in the world, assumed that we were in a relationship. Because like I said, my mom was 19 when she had me, so she's only 41 now. Like it is feasible. And it got to a really weird sort of like intimidation tactics where men would come up to me and try to size me up to see if they could take my gal. And I was like, listen, buddy, you can have her. She's fresh on the market. I was like, nowadays, this sockeye salmon's going to cost you a pretty penny, but this fish is worth it, buddy. Believe me. And luckily for her and for me, though, with this newfound like body confidence, she ended up meeting like a wonderful man, and luckily for me, he does happen to be black, so I get to keep the cool card. I feel like she really did have to do that though, because being raised with like a black stepmom, if you go from a black stepmom to like a white guy, it's all over. What am I going to talk to him about? Oh, would you like to watch the tennis tournament this weekend? It's like, come on, pal. So at least this guy and I have like so many things that we have the ability to communicate on. And I've never seen my mom in a happier state, which has just been really eye-opening to know that at any point in your life, you can continue to change and you can continue to be happier than you ever were before if you make the intentional efforts and you put down the fucking cake. That's all that it takes. Just be a little bit happier with yourself and the way that you treat yourself. But now it's gotten to the point in which my mom has gone on a few 5Ks and been able to fully run the entire way. And so it really is like, after you break your ankle, you have the ability to crawl until you have the ability to walk again. And then once you put down the long johns, you can start to jog a little bit. And you continue on that path until you get on a full-blown sprint and meet a beautiful black guy. But it is just a wonderful way that my mom and I have now this newfound connection over fitness and health that I just have never experienced prior. And she actually, because I am still a little bit of a mama's boy, when I moved to Austin, she road tripped down here with me, and it was just beautiful to stop in these shit towns like Provo, Utah, and go to work out together as we're road tripping through. Except for the only memberships that we had the ability to access at the time were all Planet Fitness. And they do not accept what we call lunks nowadays. And I'm a grunter. Hunter the Grunter. So I've been kicked out of a few on the way to Austin, but it was all worth it in order to see the beauty and the progress in what is physical health that my mom and I have been able to kind of bond over recently. But what I know now is that my metabolism is slowing down, right? As it always does. And every time that I go and visit home now, she still has the one drawer full of sweets. And so it's becoming really interesting because the more time that I spend around my mom, the more times that I just want to have a little Debbie's treat. Because, like I said, it's a coping mechanism. And she's your mom, and she gets under your skin all of the time, as mothers do. And so I'm finding that I have a weird avoidance of my mom because I don't want to be fat. One of my biggest fears that she was able to push onto me was just really becoming so overweight that I don't have the ability to see my ankles any longer because I experienced that from both sides. But it just really does reinforce the fact that no matter what point of your life that you're in, like you have the ability to connect with others in various ways that maybe they didn't have the emotional maturity and the intelligence to connect with a few years prior. So you have to continue to give people additional chances, because when they want to change, they will change. And you can't stop a fat kid from eating a Twinkie, but you can encourage them to pick up the weights then they're ready. So my name's Hunter Parker. My Instagram's Hunter Parker Comedy. Thank you guys so much.